Hello, everybody. This is Mike Brown. It's November 27th, 2023. Hope you all had a really great Thanksgiving. A lot of you aren't back to work yet, but for those of you who are and you're watching this, let's review some refresher training today. The most common questions I get from New York notaries, and it has to always do with wills and avoiding giving legal advice. I get calls about documents that people bring to you notaries that are in retail environments, and for those of you that are at work, that your boss brings to you or your coworkers bring in for things involving their private life. And you have to really avoid giving legal advice. And wills just keeps coming up, even though I've covered it so many times. We have so many new members, and we need to refresh training on this. So doing things restricted to practicing law. So we may not give advice on the law. So the notary may not draw any kind of legal papers such as wills, deeds, bills of sale, mortgages, chattel, contracts, leases, offers, options, incorporation papers, releases, mechanics liens, powers of attorney, complaints, legal complaints, and all legal pleadings for court, papers in summary proceedings to evict a tenant, or in bankruptcy affidavits, or any papers which our courts have said are legal documents. Now, can we notarize those? Yes, we can notarize all of those except for wills. So we're going to cover what we can and cannot do with a will. We can notarize the witnesses to a will, and I get this call quite often. So we can notarize all these things and more, but we can't draw them up. It says the notary may not draw. Draw means write them. So if you're creating a legal document for somebody to sign, that's drawing it up, and that's what you can't do. That's where the line is drawn, pardon the pun. So you got to be careful of that. If people ask you to do that, say, I'm not a lawyer, I can't give legal advice. Okay, so we may not ask for and get legal business to send to a lawyer or lawyers with whom he or she has any business connection or from whom he or she receives any money or other consideration for sending the business. For example, I used to be an investigator for personal injury. Lawyers would always want to have work referred to them. All right, there's advertisements all over the place for accident lawyers. So if one of them ever came and gave you their cards and offered to pay you, that's illegal. So you are allowed to, uh, give out a lawyer's card, but you're not allowed to receive any compensation for that. Only an attorney can refer business to a fellow attorney and receive a fee or any legal consideration, which is anything of value to you, including money, services, or legal value. So 3, we may not divide or agree to divide fees with a lawyer. So that is what we just said. Sometimes the lawyer will offer part of their fee if you get them a case. There's a lot of that going on. We called those street runners when I was in the personal injury business. And you can't accept any part of a lawyer's fee on any legal business. So number 4, we may not advertise in or circulate in any manner, any paper or advertisement, or say to anyone that you have any powers or rights not given to the notary by the laws under which the notary was appointed. So that's what we're covering. We're covering what you can and can't do. And you cannot answer legal questions and draw legal papers. So on wills, a testator equals the person signing their own will before they die. They cannot be notarized by a New York Notary Public unless the notary is licensed as a New York attorney. So attorneys can hold the additional office of Notary Public. Now they don't have to take the exam because they passed the bar exam, but an attorney still has to pay the application fee of $60 and submit an application and get a separate notary license just like yours. So why can we not notarize a person's signature to their own will when we're not an attorney? because when you notarize a person's signature to their own will, it allows that will to be recorded. And the state law says that the person who's signing their will, the testator, runs the risk of not having the fruits of their labor passed on to their desired outcome, usually relatives. So they run the risk of having their estate not get to where they wanted to because they didn't have legal advice due to the complexities of estate law. So the simple act of you notarizing a testator's signature to their own will can be deemed as practicing law without a license, and you don't want to fall into that trap. And I get that call continually. A notary public is cautioned not to execute an acknowledgement of the execution of a will, and that's the one where the testator signs their own will, and such acknowledgement cannot be deemed equivalent to an attestation clause accompanying a will. So there's a place after the will that two witnesses sign, signature of witness it says. It'll say that they attest in here when you read it, and then the notary is not allowed to notarize the signature of the person signing the will, but the notary could sign or notarize the witnesses to a will, because these people have nothing to do with requiring legal advice. They're simply a witness to seeing a testator sign their own will. I did have a case I was involved in one time where a man was killed in a construction accident in White Plains, and his wife and two children were left. So the widow appeared in court with the will of the decedent father, that he had made up a will, and he had two witnesses sign it, and he signed it, but he never had it recorded or notarized. So the judge allowed a regular notary to then notarize the two witnesses' attestation clauses. So we went ahead and sent out an investigator with a notary license over to these witnesses. We tracked them down, and we did an acknowledgement certificate, and that will in that case was recorded because it was too late for him to get legal advice, and that did hold up that way. So that's what you got to watch out for on wills. So advertising by New York Notaries Public. So there's a really huge amount of immigration going on in New York, especially in the 5 boroughs, but branching out all over New York's upstate. And when you're advertising, you need to advertise that you can't give legal advice, that you're not an attorney. And the problem is really occurring mostly in different diverse ethnic neighborhoods where signage and advertising is in different languages. Because my experience in traveling around the world is that all over the world, usually people who are notary publics are also attorneys at law. So when people come to the United States, they wrongfully assume that a notary public, like out of a bodega, is an abogado or an attorney in Spanish. And this is the case because wherever they're coming from, the notaries are usually attorneys everywhere in the world, but not here in the United States. So in the United States and in New York in particular, a notary public is a constitutional officer of the United States. So that's a very basic part of our laws. And you don't have to be an attorney to make things admissible in a court of law and recordable. That's what a notary does. So the provisions of this section shall not apply to attorneys at law admitted to practice in the state of New York, because of course an attorney who's a notary doesn't have to make a statement that they're not an attorney. 2, a notary public who advertises his or her services as a notary public in a language other than English shall post with such advertisement a notice in such other language the following statement: I am not an attorney licensed to practice law and may not give legal advice about immigration or any other legal matter or accept fees for legal service. Number 3, a notary public shall not use terms in a foreign language in any advertisement for his or her services as a notary public that mean or imply that the notary public is an attorney licensed to practice in the state of New York or in any jurisdiction of the United States. For example, the most common one is abogado in Spanish, because that's the most common immigration inflow going on right now from South America. Okay, 4. Advertisement shall mean and include material designed to give notice of or to promote or describe the services offered by a notary public for profit, and shall include business cards, brochures, and notices, whether in print or electronic form. So it's not limited to these. If you have a website up and you're going in the traveling notary business, and on that website it's in Spanish, you need to put up the disclaimer in there that you're not an attorney and can't give legal advice in Spanish, for example. 5. Any person who violates any provision of this section or any rule under this regulation promulgated by the Secretary of State may be liable for civil penalty of up to $1,000. The Secretary of State may suspend the notary public upon a second violation of any of the provisions of this section, and may remove from office a notary public upon a third violation of any of the provisions of this section, provided that the notary public shall have been served with a copy of the charges against him or her and has been given an opportunity being heard. So you get a hearing. This is pretty lax that they let you do this 3 times. That's really kind of actually shocking to me that you can do this 3 times, because by the second time you would already be aware that you shouldn't be doing it. But there is another provision in the law, and that's immediate. That's practicing law in New York. Is a criminal contempt, if convicted, is a Class A misdemeanor unless you're an attorney. It's practicing law without a license, and it's mandatory sentencing to a maximum of 1 year in jail. So if you're giving legal services and you get caught up in this other charge of not advertising properly, and you're taking legal fees, that's criminal contempt. That's a misdemeanor. You don't get 3 chances for that. Okay, so the statement again is, I'm not an attorney licensed to practice law and may not give legal advice about immigration, especially, that's the most common one, or any other legal matter or accept fees for legal advice. So the disclaimer shall be printed clearly and conspicuously and shall be made in the same language as the advertisement. The translated disclaimer in some but not all languages is as follows. So there's an example of it in different languages. They don't have Russian there. If you're out in Brooklyn, you might be in a Russian neighborhood. They have Filipino. Out in Queens, in Tagalog, so whatever you are, it's not just limited to these. So anyway, for procedure questions that you might have about this or anything, you can give us a call, or licensing and refresher questions, call 347-427-9091. We now have live New York City notary licensing classes again on West 42nd Street between 8th and 9th Avenue. So go ahead and check out the website for that. We've had an amazing amount of requests to do that. A lot of people just don't want to do online training. So with the live class, we're sending everybody home with a free copy of the online training because of the unlimited practice exams. And the live class is the one limiting factor, is you can't get enough practice questions at the end of a long live class. The benefit of a live class is you can ask questions and interact. So you're going to get the best of 2 worlds with that. Now, if you can't get into a live class and you're on a budget, we have still the self-paced online notary licensing classes are available. Read the testimonials there. People absolutely love it. And of course, for you current notaries, if you're coming up for renewals and you need new notary stamps and seals, you all need a journal. If you haven't gotten the word yet, you have to have a logbook, also called a journal now, as of 2023. So you want to get that. And we have other supplies that are available to be drop shipped to your home or office to make your job easier as a notary public. And of course, on our website, we have free membership in the New York State Notary Association, and to get this newsletter directly in your inbox and not have to go find it on YouTube. So you can visit the website for all the above at www.howtobecomenotaryinny.com. Okay, so we're going to have a lot more refresher trainings coming up because so many things have changed in the law since they issued the new statutes in March of this year.
www.notaryeverything.com Every office needs a notary public. Doesn't yours? Award-winning, online, self-paced NY State Notary Licensing Exam Prep. This is an amazing resume turbo booster. Increase respect from your employer or job interviewer. Get respect from coworkers, family, and friends. More and more employers want this on your resume. A notary license gets your resume on top of the interview list. Many people do this as an extra income gig. See the testimonials and social proof. Become the winner in your office by becoming a notary public today. Get free membership in the NYS Notary Association. www.howtobecomeanotary.ny.com. Call 347-427-9091 for more info.